on what's actually behind these low numbers. What are you looking at?
Well, I think it's interesting to look where the sort of spoils of war so far have gone as the economy has recovered. And so we have a chart that basically shows that GDP, which went into a recession, is now, it's that sort of steady green line in the middle, is now actually back to where it was before, in fact, slightly higher than it was before the recession began. So, in fact, we have had a recovery. The sort of jagged line is corporate profits, and you can see that corporate profits are now at an all-time record, and they're up something like 16% from where they were before all this started. But what's really, I think, most interesting is that labor share has gone down. Labor actually has almost 10% less than it had before all this started. And this is part of a longer-term trend, as you see on this next slide, that labor share, which kind of bounced around for a long time, in the last 5 to 7 years has fallen off a cliff. And so I'm a capitalist. I'm in favor of corporate profits, but it's very hard to justify, and it's easy to understand why you have so many unhappy voters when you see that their share of the pie is shrinking.
As we look at this chart, Steve, let me ask you a question. You see a decline from 99 forward, but why the precipitous decline just over the past 2 years? It has fallen off a cliff. What's going on there?
It has fallen off a cliff. You had a recession, which is never good for labor, and business just clamps down on costs. And as we've talked about before on this show and on many other shows, they do everything they can to avoid hiring because of things like the decline of unions, just to pick one factor. Labor has no real bargaining power, so wages are not going up. VW is building a new plant in this country in which they're going to pay $14 an hour compared to $28 an hour in Detroit. We're living in a global economy, and companies are using that to their advantage to generate profits and hold costs down at the expense of labor. And